everyone. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah. So I thought Anil had embarrassed me enough, but I think Srinivas has taken it to another level. The last time I got such a long introduction at TIE, I really took it up with the person and I said, listen, it's going to be 2 lines and 4 lines because it's really about the company and not so much. So before we get started, I really wanted to, I want to know who's working with IIM Gurgaon. Okay, great. I want to thank you guys, 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, so you probably work closely with Latika and Atal. Yeah, they are the real drivers, I would say now. We are still the bogies around and we just keep supporting them and helping them. But yeah, we did put this together. Actually, 3 ladies put it together first. So it was Latika, Swanzil and another lady, Ambika, who's no longer involved. And then 4 more of us got involved. And we had many, many meetings. Every Saturday was reserved for IIM Gurgaon work. Unfortunately, not too much time going into it, but I think still good work coming out of it, which is fantastic. Not too much time going in from my point of view, but many others. Okay, so we've got about an hour, which I want to cover some slides I've got, which I think will probably put across 2 things. I call it learnings from my trip. It will put across one, what was really the thought process I had while putting up Make My Trip, and how it can help you. So the whole purpose out here is how it can help you as young professionals. You're going to get into the big bag world of business, whether you work for someone or you want to do your own thing. I hope there'll be some lessons out here which could help. And then the second part of this is, as Anil rightfully put it, we're very, very proud of one thing. Much more than financial achievements, NASDAQ listing feels good, it was a big high. It's still something which is special because not so many companies out of here, which are first generation in the new age economy, have actually managed to list or want to list. I find more and more companies who want to sell not necessarily list, which is fine because listing means it's a new life. So your first question to me today was, how does it feel like, in this new mode of phase of Make My Trip? And I said, frankly, sir, it feels in a way just the same because every time you look up, it's still a mountain to climb. So you might move from base camp 1 to base camp 2 to base camp 3, which is a good thing because if you think you reach some kind of summit, then you'll get complacent, right? You'll start taking it easy. And in a sense, that's probably the beginning of that's telling you something. It might be time to move on to something else, etc. So a couple of things which will hopefully come out here. I want to keep enough time for Q&A. I'm sure that you guys have tons of questions, maybe your questions even before I get started. So because that's what I find sometimes, that's so much more fun. But bear with me a bit, we'll go through some slides which I promise you will be interesting, and we'll still keep enough time for Q&A. So I'm going to request someone to turn off lights, I guess. We'll get more contrast here. Yeah, it'll be great if we can. That's good. Okay. That's what happens when you have fancy presentations. Okay. By the way, if you want to use this software, at the end of it, it's called Prezi.com. It's pretty cool if someone's used it. It's really I can't even use the kind of language I'm used to because I'm being recorded. But it's really a pain. I was going to say something else. It's a pain to edit. It's a pain to edit, but it's great to present with. So I really like it. Okay, so I guess the most important thing which each one of us has got to figure out in our lives is, in our corporate lives, in our professional lives, it's very easy to do it in our personal lives. We all know in our personal lives what makes us happy. It's pretty easy to see, right? So I think if I was to poll most of the men out here, they'd say it might be watching cricket, it might be hiking or trekking, or it might be rafting, including the women. I don't want to be sexist. It might be going out drinking, and that might say something, okay, I like chilling out and this is what I like to do. If I ask the women, they might say I love shopping or watching something particular on TV or reading or whatever. That's great. So today we're going to try to focus on, but what makes you happy at work? What makes you happy professionally? And it takes a long time to figure this out. If you can figure this out quickly, then it's fantastic because you've short-circuited a lot of years which you'll spend otherwise trying to figure out what I call what makes you tick. What makes each one of us tick as professionals? And it took me actually a fairly long time. So it took me 8 years of working life, after professional life. After my MBA in '92, I worked for a bank called ABN AMRO. I worked there 3 years. In fact, one of our accounts at that point of time was Aisha Consulting. And that's how I know ECS so well, and Aisha Tractors, so I know the company way back then. And I was an account manager. I loved the bank, I loved the startup of ABN AMRO, but I was convinced I'm not cut out to be a banker. In 2 years I knew, corporate banking was fairly regulated at that time. Your consortium kind of lending, you couldn't do very adventurous things, your interesting proposals got shot down. So by 2 years, I said, I'm probably going to die on my desk writing a proposal. I need to do something more real and more exciting. It took me another year to actually make that transition. And I sought out a very exciting job. It was still a job, but it was very entrepreneurial. I worked for a company called AMF Bowling. I had other offers. I think it helps to have a good degree like you're all going to get. And I had good offers from what is now Yum Restaurants, was called Pizza Hut at that time, Arvind Mills. Some pretty interesting offers, but I took up this very, very wacky and exciting thing called AMF Bowling. And I wanted to bring the sport come pastime of 10-pin bowling to India. I think you can blame it on age. So I was 25, 26, I was a little crazy and dreamy. But I did that for 4 years. I really tried very hard to make that happen. And I learned a lot. I don't regret doing that at all. In financial sense, it was a complete failure. It didn't work. I hoped to put in a few thousand lanes. I managed to put in 200 lanes. Put in meaning I sold 200 lanes. No large-scale developments came up except one in Bombay called Phoenix Mills, which was 20 lanes. And the kind that you see now when you go to Blue O, that was the vision. Everyone is bowled here, 10-pin bowling, you've seen it. So 20 lanes, 24 lanes, 16 lanes, big family entertainment, open, you can do food and beverage right there, you can play pool. Like a nice place to hang out when it's hot and when it's late and you can't do anything else indoor because so much of India's climate is not conducive to being outdoor. So I thought the conditions are right, and if China could take in 10,000 lanes, then India could definitely take in a few thousand lanes. So logically, it seemed perfect. In theory, it should have worked. It didn't because large-scale development did not exist in India. Malls did not exist way back in 95 to 99. Most of you were, in diapers? No, in school? Okay, long time back. So what's the average age here? 21, 22, 23? 24 is the average age. Okay, so I'm not that off the mark. But it was very early days. So the first big mall really came up much, much later. And because there was no large-scale development, everyone wanted to put in. You sold them 20 lanes and they put in 4 lanes. So 32nd milestone, which you see out here, was my first project in 95 December. And it was very exciting. I mean, it was finally we got bowling here, modern bowling here. Before that, we had Qutub Hotel with the 4-lane semi-automatic, kind of manual. There was a guy at the back who would actually do the replacement of pins, and Shah Rukh Khan would bowl out there. So that was a favorite hangout joint for Columbans. So anyway, what I learned during those 4 years was actually a lot. I learned how to access every businessman in this country who either had real estate, which was my starting point, or purported to have real estate. In India, that's the big thing. People would take you in and say, "Haan, ye hamari jagah hai, ye hamari jagah hai," and all. Later, you'd get to know after some time that hamari jagah meant it was some cousins or it was mortgaged 3 times over. It was not their own place at all. So it taught me a lot about what I call street smartness. Those of you know Hindi or Marathi, it's dhanda. So it really taught me dhanda. And it's very important because I was trying to reach out, I was trying to find these guys in a sensible manner, in a smart manner, not advertise. I couldn't afford to advertise in Times of India, but I would get my bowling investors to go and advertise on the front page and say, let's announce your bowling alley, 4-lane bowling alley to 1 crore people. Didn't make any sense, but I wanted to popularize AMF bowling. So, but we did many, many things, which I think I could have called it quits a little earlier. What I was losing out on perhaps was really, I call it, I guess intellectual stimulation. I wasn't growing as an individual, I wasn't growing as a manager, because my boss sat in Richmond, Virginia. It was largely an entrepreneurial venture out here, though I got paid a fixed kind of salary, but I wasn't learning. And that starts to really affect you. And you guys will realize this as you get into corporate life or whatever you do next, that the most important thing is not going to be the salary that you're going to make. You think that's the most important thing. It's a trap. So guys, pay attention, even at the back, whoever's finding this boring, just listen to this, it's very important. It's a big trap when you take one job over another because the paycheck is higher. Honestly, in the long run, it is irrelevant. It does not matter. Please don't fall into that trap. Choose something you love doing. Choose something where you'll keep growing, where you'll keep learning, where you'll have great mentors like you have mentors here, where you'll have good bosses to learn from, where you can, because those first, 10 to 20 years are the real first 2 decades where you invest in yourself, where you grow as managers. After that, it becomes very hard. It becomes hard to ask dumb questions. Then you are expected to manage. Then you are expected to actually mentor and teach, not to be the mentee. It's difficult because in India we typically say, now this guy is 40, now, he's right by now, and people actually stop learning, which itself is wrong. But by and large, that will happen. So in the first decade, I would say 2 decades, invest in the right kind of job, which can help you grow, and very importantly, what makes you tick. I made one more change before starting Make My Trip, and that was a very short one. It lasted all of 15, 16 months. I worked with G Capital, and I joined G only for one reason. I joined G because I wanted to join a company which taught you about scale, how to manage complexity, and how to grow. And I started to panic that I was losing out in AMF bowling, while my peers, I didn't care, they were earning more than me. Because I was earning much more than a few years ago. It didn't matter to me. I became a country manager when I was 26. It's a heady feeling. It lasts for about 3 days. After that, big deal. It really doesn't matter. It's the same thing about buying a new bike or buying a new car. These things are irrelevant. Sure, they feel very good for a bit, but then after that, what's the real joy out of that? What's the big deal? We all know at the end of the day, the comfort factor is the same. It's just a little bit of thrill, and we have to outgrow all of that. So it's good to outgrow that. So I joined G Capital because G Countrywide was looking for someone, which is now called G Money, who could help them distribute their consumer finance products in new ways. And I worked for a guy called Nitin Gupta, very bright guy. And I asked Nitin the first day, what do you want me to do? And his answer was very simple, which is that, if I knew what you had to do, I won't get you here. So I said, okay, that's a good point. So he said, go figure and come back to me in 1 month's time. And he said, listen, by now, and come back to me in 1 month's time, what you're going to do. The problem statement is simple. We want to find interesting ways, new ways, smart ways of distributing consumer loans, personal loans, and auto loans. Please don't go to the same dealers, don't go to the distributors, don't go to the, that we've got a machinery running for that. Tell us something new. What was new was obviously the internet. So it was pretty exciting because I just embraced the internet because it was 99, it was just about happening out here. And I can tell you in the next 15, 16 months for me, the web really beckoned. Does anyone know what the Latin phrase carpe diem means? Yeah, go ahead, say it. If you know it, say it.
Talking about taking life by the hand, grabbing life, going out and living your life.
You're a good quizzer because you can work out answers, which is pretty good because it helps. Half the time you can get marks in quizzing by working out answers. So literally it means, so diem by the way comes from, per diem, so it means day. So carpe diem means seize the day. To carp is to seize. So seize the day, seize the moment. For me it was really seize it because I felt it was now or never. There is a bit of a lesson out there. There will be opportunities which will come. I'm not saying it's going to be the last opportunity in the world. But those of you who want to be entrepreneurs will have to make a very big decision. At what point of time do you think you're ready? For me, the solution was to work 8 years first. 8 years doesn't mean it was hard-coded 8 years. It could have been 5 years, it could have been 4 years, it could have been 10 years. But the important point was to get that work experience. I think that work experience I got was invaluable because of the kind of people I worked for. Some of them the kind of companies too. I thought ABN and G were wonderful companies. AMF Bowling was a modest company. It was a $1 billion company, so it wasn't immodest. But there was not a lot of learning to do out there in terms of really growth. But the kind of people that one interacted with, both who you worked with and who your customers were, who your partners were, can give you immense learnings. I had a boss in ABN AMRO who I still respect tremendously, even though he didn't talk to me for 1 year. Ramesh Softi, for 1 year after I quit ABN AMRO, he didn't want to talk to me. Because his problem was not that I quit banking, his problem was that I wanted to do bowling. And he says, how crazy can you be? And he still rips me about it, but then after a year he mellowed down. And he's very dear to me. I was 2 months ago at his daughter's wedding, and he's still a friend, philosopher guy, Sohail Chandar. People I learned so much from that I still, there's a lot of respect. So take up jobs where you really figure out that I can learn. This is a place
which focuses just like soil in imparting knowledge, is open about imparting knowledge, actually cherishes growing young leaders. I spent half an hour with Anil and some of the other folks before this, and they kept resonating the same thing again and again, which is amazing, which is that we want to nurture young leaders. I don't hear that. I've spoken at probably about 20 different institutes, right from IMA to many other institutes. There's only one other place I heard this on. And it really felt good because I heard it in this other place which is called YILF or the Ashoka University soon. That's the only other place which had the same kind of philosophy. Everyone else, like you said, they're there. I mean, I love my institutes, both Stephens and IMA and Columbus, but they're not saying we really enjoy the fact that we can nurture young leaders. So join a company which has similar values because it'll help you tremendously as you go through. I made a very clinical evaluation. People say, why travel and why online travel? To be honest, of course I love traveling and I still do. That was one thing, but it was very clinical. And I think you have to be clinical and objective in certain things. Do you know why they call it clinical? Because, doctors have to be clinical. They can't get emotional. They have to be, all these trials have to be very clinical. You can't get, the moment you get emotional about doing a surgery, you'll bungle it up. So doctors may seem impassive because they have to be. So you have to be very objective about some things. I looked at what model is going to work. I looked at various things. I looked at the internet, which I was convinced of. So decision tree. B2C, I was pretty convinced of because I thought I could connect with customers and I liked that part of it. B2B for me was less cool and less exciting, so I said that's fine. And then I looked at what has worked overseas, what should work here. Online travel had worked, online stockbroking had worked. What I was convinced what would work in India way back in 99, 2000 those days was something which people already did while transacting on the phone. I was convinced that it would take a long time for something like shopping for clothes, particularly for women, to move online. It's happening now, but that's 12, 13 years after that time. Things have changed a lot. And I myself have gone and invested in a online clothes retail brand because I think the time has come. It's called Zovi.com. You should check it out. It's pretty cool. It's working very well for some of those guys. But it's taken a long time. Way back then, it wouldn't make any sense. So online stockbroking, online travel, did a very clinical assessment, had 2 business plans, both of them made a lot of sense, and then the head won over the heart a little bit. Maybe online stockbroking made more sense, I had a little more training for that, but online travel just seemed so exciting. It went back to point number 1, what makes me tick? It got me excited. It got me really thinking. I liked the fact that, at that point of time, I thought people would pay for travel videos. It seems laughable today. But, we didn't have YouTube then. But I like the fact that we can, give imagery to people, give content to people, which will help them make up their minds of where they'd like to go and where they'd like to travel. It just seemed a lot of exciting, and that's how I pretty much took the plunge. I think age will help when you take your own plunge, if you do. And even if you don't take a plunge for entrepreneurship, and I'm not making a pitch for entrepreneurship at all out here, even if you take a plunge for doing something which is at the back of your mind, it's a little crazy, but it'll get crazier and crazier if you do that later on in life. The earlier you do that crazy thing, a little off-beat, not a banking job, not an FMCG job, not a consulting job, not the regular thing which your parents will feel, "Theek kaam kar raha hai, ladka, ya theek kaam kar rahi hai," they'll feel very good about this. Not that. You say there's something else. I think there's a big business out there. It could be in, I don't know, family entertainment. It could, that time maybe online is not so crazy. Maybe mobile games. You might think gaming is huge. It is a huge industry in the world. You tell your parents, any of them, they'll say, "What's wrong with you?" by and large. You tell people around you, they'll say, "Okay, if you think it's a good idea, go figure." Do your homework, do it objectively, do it clinically. If you think it makes sense, perhaps better to do it sooner than later. But the reason should be clear. The reason should be because you believe you can make a difference there. You can do something which is not being done. You have a clever idea, or you don't think there's talent in that industry. There are a lot of industries in India that talent has not gone in because it's at the bottom end. Travel is one of them. We find it really hard to hire good people in travel because travel was never an industry of choice. If people didn't get anything else, they went for travel. So it was pretty hard for us, I think, initial days to hire. I think there's a fine line between resilience and stubbornness. When you're in the zone, you're plain, stupid, stubborn. The fact that I did not give up AMF bowling much earlier, I was just stubborn. But every entrepreneur, I believe, has to be stubborn. If you're not stubborn, which comes out of an innate degree of, I guess, self-confidence, I think an innate desire to prove to yourself and to the people who mean something to you that you can succeed, you will fail at the first hurdle that you get. Not fail, you'll just quit. You'll quit very early. So if you fundamentally believe in something and the analytics tell you that things are going right, albeit a long way away, your ray of light or your ray of hope is pretty far, but you're moving in the right direction week on week on week. And that's how we went through our toughest hours. 2001 to 2003, our business was generating no money, we were losing, we had no funding, self-funded. I took no salary for 18 months, some of the other senior guys took big cuts. It was really, really dark. But there's just two things which kept me going. The right side of the brain, which is, I guess, the creative side, kept me going because it was the stubbornness which said, I'm going to make this happen, this is important, I have to prove to myself, this can't be another AMF bowling all over again, I know I'm onto a good thing. The left side of the brain, the analytical one, supported that by saying that week on week we're getting better. Our conversion numbers are improving. One day the cost and the revenue line will intersect. One day we'll break even. Now it's a question of how much I can pull that intersection closer to where I am now and how I can bridge the gap with capital. That's all I need to do. So, and I had a couple of senior colleagues who later became co-founders who supported me in that, which is great because we had three of us to talk to connect with. And that was really important too. And that's what keeps you going. So I think stubbornness, you look back and you say, I was resilient. So if it's successful, you look back and say, oh, I was very resilient. I went through 2001 and 2003 due to my vision and due to my resilience. That's all BS. At that point of time, you're plain stubborn. It keeps you going is a crazy desire to succeed. That's very important. If you don't have that, I don't think entrepreneurship is a great line. And finally, I think you've got to have lasting inspirations. For me, I've got many actually. A few of them are listed here. Steve Jobs for sure. Sheer desire for perfection. Strive for perfection at any cost. Do you know one of the coolest things that Jobs does, and I don't know if any of you have read his biography, which Isaacson's written, very, very cool. So Steve Jobs of Apple would take 100 of his top executives to a retreat and go in the wilderness, wherever they would go for 2 days, and he'd do it quite often, I think once a year or twice a year. And he'd say, what do you think the company should be doing? You're the CEO, each one of you put down 5 new ideas that the company should focus on this year. So you would have 500 ideas. Of course, you'd have tons of overlaps, and they'd quickly sort those out because these are all super bright guys. And they'd come up with maybe a list of 100 unique ideas, or maybe even 60, 70 unique ideas. And then they'd battle them out. He'd say, these are too many, we can't do so many things, of course. So before the night is out, you've got to come down to 10 or 20 ideas, some number, I forget what it was. And the fist fights would start because guys would say, this is a smarter idea and I can support it by doing this. This is how much we'll make out of this. This can take Apple all the way here, etc., etc. And they do all of that, and maybe 1 a.m. in the morning, they'd say, okay, we've finally got 10 ideas. And these are the 10 that Apple is going to focus on this year, which is awesome. Let's say, great, okay, have a good night's rest, whatever you need to do, come back in the morning. And the 10 ideas are up there on the board, right there, flip chart, 10 ideas, great ideas, which 100 of you put together. He says, now we're going to do 3 of them. So now figure out how we're going to come down to 3. So the idea wasn't they take all day to get to 3. The idea is focus, laser sharp focus. Do few things, do it well. And which company has proven this better than Apple? Look at what they do. At the end of the day, I mean, there are a lot of small products, but at the end of the day, there are 3 products they make. All of you know it's the most valuable company in the world, ever. That's unbelievable, by making 3 products. They make, iPhones, they make iPads, and they make pretty much, iTouches, I guess, is their third. But between these 2 products, just their iPhones and their iPads, they become the most valuable company in the world, where people can't get enough of them. It's focus. His whole focus on design is a very contrarian view to how we look at design. They look at design by taking away. How much can you take away from that box? to make it simpler, not how much can you add to it. And that's why that device becomes so simple. So the original dial on the iTouch or the iPod was take away from it, and it's fascinating. Similarly, I think Amazon has done something really, really great around customer centricity online. So if any of you have bought on Amazon, you'll know what I mean. You can't hit a dead end. You go to a dead end, and there'll be enough ways of getting you back and saying, do you want to change that order? You can buy now, but you can cancel it. You can add it to your cart, but you can cancel. You get a full refund. So much of confidence building that you don't feel scared taking the plunge and buying items. The first time you buy a book, you buy something smaller. The next time you say, hey, this thing works, I'll buy the Kindle. Next time you buy, people are buying cars on Amazon.com. They buy their cars. They say, why should I go? This is a great deal. I know what a Ford, whatever Fiesta looks like. I'll just buy it on Amazon.com. I'm getting a great saving. People are buying TVs on them all the time. It's purely customer centricity, but done online. Southwest Airline, perhaps the best example of employee empowerment. Southwest believed, and if you haven't read this book called Nuts, you should. They believe that you've got to empower your frontline staff. They would empower their air hostesses at that point of time with 50 to 100. You guys know this? You've read Southwest? Okay, I won't waste your time. Okay, I thought it was very inspiring. When frontline gets empowered, they can make amazing changes. They also want to work for you. If they want to work for you, happy employee makes happy customer. So very simple kind of progress. Okay, the rest of the slides are not so painful. Okay, so one of the big things we did was, I think reading the market correctly, we got it right twice. Anyone seen this cartoon before? Or this, you've seen it before? Okay, so hold your horses. Those who haven't. So, this is what happened when a famous cola company or a nutrition company, I guess, Gatorade or someone, when see, ma'am doesn't understand hold your horses. She wants to tell her that I'm very smart, I know this. Okay, it is pretty cool. So what happened was this famous beverage company launched in this particular country, and they bombed. And you know why they bombed, obviously, now. They bombed because they launched in an Arabic country where they read from right to left. And when you read from right to left, this doesn't do wonders for your brand, right? And that's exactly what happened. It might be a snob, I don't know, but it's a great story. But the point is, if you don't read your market right, you can get it so badly wrong. I'll tell you two great examples and Make My Trip's history. In 2000, when we launched, and so Srinivas, we actually launched Make My Trip wherever you are in 2000, but that's okay. 2005 was our India launch. So 2000, we launched both in India and in the US market for NRIs. Within 3 months of marketing in India, we realized that people aren't buying online. We're getting tons of bookers, very few bookers. Conversion ratios in India were pathetic because in 2000, people were not ready to spend online. They were scared. They're saying, we don't know what's going to happen. I'll do my research, but I'm going to call up my travel agent and say, net pe sasta mil raha hai, mere ko de do. That kind of thing. So that was the prevalent psychology, and it takes a long time to change customer habits. So I think the smartest decision we made in hindsight, otherwise we would have perished like all the other companies of the first wave in the dot-com wave, was we stopped marketing in India in 2000. We kept the site going, we stopped all marketing. We saved all our money and spent all our money in the NRI market, which was buying online. Because they were already used to buying online, thanks to Expedia.com in the US or Amazon and various other, they were used to this, and this is safe. It's an online medium. If anything goes wrong, I can refute the charge on my card. They have a Better Business Bureau kind of sign, which means that they're a respectable business. I can hold them by the collar if something goes wrong. And so we focused on that market and we read it right. Then in 2005, what told us that the market's ready out here? Two things really. So I think we read it right again, which was maybe a little late. In 2003, Indian Railways had launched their site, IRCTC. I give them a lot of credit for bringing people online and making them confident that you can buy online. So we said, hey, something's changing. I went and spent half a day with their GM, Amitabh Tandon, and he shared with me what was going on the site. And he said, these 5,000 people who are booking every day, only 2,500 are travel agents. There was a big myth that travel agents are cornering all the tickets and then selling them offline. He said the rest are retail guys. And I said, how do they pay? He said, we only accept credit cards. So I said, 2,500 people every day ready to use their credit card, perhaps something for us. And then the launch of low-cost airlines changed the whole game for us. Low-cost airlines provided a phenomenal opportunity for Make My Trip to do something which the offline agent could not do. The offline agent got content from airlines on a green and black screen called a GDS, Global Distribution System. Only full-service carriers were there. But the low-cost carriers like Air Deccan and everyone else was advertising 1,000 rupee fare, 900 rupee fare, and crazy fares. And people said, that's what I want. You call up your travel agent and said, I want Air Deccan's fare. And the guy didn't want to sell Air Deccan because it was a pain. He had to go to the Air Deccan website, he had to pull those fares, he had to keep money with them, have a deposit, and then make a booking for you. And if you changed your mind, he lost money. It was very painful. So through technology, we could pull real-time information from each of these sites, their servers, by building what we called a direct connect. The first time we went to build a direct connect, they didn't know what we were talking about. So we had to educate them that this is how it's done. And they said, well, talk to our hosting partners because we don't know what you're talking about. Before they knew it, we connected up all the low-cost carriers, pulled all their content, meshed it with the content we got from the GDS system, put it together, and then we threw up to you what you see today. So that was of immense value. We changed something fundamentally in the buying behavior. What we changed fundamentally, I believe, in India in 2005 was we put the customer in control. Till that point of time, the travel agent was in control. The travel agent sold you what he or she wanted to sell you. By doing this, we put you as the customer, or me as the customer in control, because now I make the choice if I'm ready to spend 1,000 rupees more to take a better time flight, if I'm ready to spend 1,000 rupees more for in-flight entertainment when we had it, now it's no longer there in domestic skies, or if I wanted to save 1,000 rupees or 500 rupees by flying on a low-cost carrier or whatever it was. So I made those value choices because I had all the information. That was a heady feeling, and that's why I think we made a connect fairly quickly there. Coming to people, for those of you at the back, you probably can't read this, but David Ogilvy of advertising fame, the legend of advertising, if each of us hires people who are smarter, who are smaller than we are, we shall become a company of dwarfs. But if each of us hires people who are bigger than we are, we will be a company of giants. We'll become a company of giants, said David Ogilvy. And it's so true because, there's a big trap in hiring people who look like you, who talk like you, who react like you. They're the easiest guys to hire, but they're not good people to hire because they don't make the quality of your decision making much better. You hire people who are better than you. If you're an entrepreneur, there's no reason you can't do that. You have to be fearless. Why are you insecure? Go ahead and hire who you want, because only then will your company get better. If you're not an entrepreneur, and guys, remember this when you become managers and even when you apply, there'll be some guys who won't hire you because the smartest of you will threaten them that you're going to take their job one day. They're weak managers. You'll come across some people. There's some people who won't promote you in your first and your second job because the smartest among you will threaten them that you'll take your job. Two things are happening. That guy or that gal is a weak manager, and secondly, that company has not invested in their people to give them the confidence that if they have someone who can take your job, you will do something bigger in the company. So there's something fundamentally wrong. Connect this back to the first slide where I said join a company which is a growing and a learning company which wants to grow leaders. If you want to grow leaders, you have to have a succession path. Otherwise, where will those leaders go? Only if you're a growing company can you accommodate them. Who they replace, guys like you, who you're going to replace must have some other openings. So it's really important that you join a company where this culture is there. I believe we've done this fairly well. We're still learning, but I keep trying to give a lot of positive strokes and confidence to my direct reports and their direct reports that don't worry when you've got a star in the making. Please bring that person out, draw that person out because we need people like that. Only then can you free yourself to do something else. So when guys come to me appraisal time and they say, I want to do something else, I want a bigger role, I said, first thing, who's going to succeed you? Do you have a succession plan? And they said, so-and-so guy. I said, not ready yet. Let's work on the guy for 6 months to 12 months. Let's get the person ready, has the talent, and then you can move to something else. So the guy then becomes fearless in going ahead and promoting that person and letting that person actually grow. Okay, the fitment puzzle is going to hit a lot of you, unfortunately. So the fitment puzzle is that the best people are not necessarily, the best individuals, are not necessarily the best people for any company. I believe soil is different because of one little anecdote that I heard. The way you guys study, you work in groups a lot more. That's the reason in an MBA people work in groups, by the way. They work in groups because that is the best simulation you can get to the real world. That is the real world. You have to work in groups. Corporate life is about playing soccer, not about playing tennis. If you play tennis, and if you know tennis, one great tennis player can win a country the Davis Cup. He'll win the single, he'll win his reverse single, and then he or she will also win the doubles because he's so good. So Djokovic can technically win Serbia the Davis Cup. But Ronaldo can't win Portugal the World Cup in soccer. It didn't happen. It didn't happen. Why? Because as a team, Spain played better than them. As a team, many other countries played better than them. Working life is about maybe not 11 people always working together, sometimes even more, but very often 3 or 4 of you have to become tag teams. And you've got to work very closely together. So folks, don't forget this. Don't end up becoming that sphere or that cylinder, which has to fit actually, the fitment is in a square. Don't end up becoming individuals. Very strong individuals who will do anything, including stepping on someone else's toes and fingernails to get to the next thing. It really will catch up with you at some point of time. No good company wants fantastic individuals but bad team players. They actually become bad for company culture. At some point of time, that company will sit back and they'll say, hey, this rotten apple is spoiling the whole pie. We need to make a change. This is not good culture. This person is bringing in the wrong kind of values. So don't end up in that trap. It's again a trap where you think that you've come first in class, which is great, someone's got to come first, but you still work as a team. So being popular is actually a very good indication of how well you'll do in corporate life. Because if you're popular, it means you work with everyone. People like you because you're a popular person, you like to help, you like to work in groups, you're happy to assist without expecting anything back. Really, that's what happens in corporate life very often. They are the kind of people we all want to hire. This might be tough to read at the back again. This is Dilbert, my favorite cartoon. So Dilbert, can you read it last row? Yes. You have great eyesight then there's no problem. Okay. So basically this is the yes boss syndrome. The yes boss syndrome is very dangerous. This again goes back to hiring people who look like you and talk like you. When you hire and when you are being hired, you'll find people who will ask you questions with a very smart smile. This is their killer question. Everyone has a few killer questions. I go into a meeting, I prepare for that interview, I have a few questions and I'll ask them. If the person tends to answer them in a manner that you would have answered them, you feel very satisfied. You say this person gets it. This person thinks the right way. You bring that person in. There's a good chance that person will end up being a typical yes boss kind of person. A yes boss kind of person is very bad for the organization. It doesn't help decision making at all. The quality of your decision remains the same because this person is going to agree with everything you say. I have a leadership team of 10 and me 11, so it's like a cricket or a soccer team. Imagine if everyone there agreed with me. If everyone agreed with everything we'd say, by and large I don't need 10 people at that level. I can have someone at manager level who will just go and execute what I think is right. I can tell you I am definitely not right most of the time now. I probably make more mistakes than anyone else because I'm fearless to make those mistakes, that's one. I'm not worried about looking, I'm going to come across as stupid, it was a bad idea, but it's still an idea. But what I'm really hoping all the time is that those 10 folks I've hired, most of them are smart enough, confident enough and bright enough to take me on with my decision making and take me head on and say we don't think it's a great idea, even if it makes me look silly in a leadership team meeting or in a board meeting, it does. It's not nice when you're CEO and someone brings you down and pulls you down in a board meeting who's your peer who actually works for you. It's not fun, but it's actually it's the hallmark of a good company. Only in a good, healthy company where the culture is right can people do that without fearing that I'll get into trouble. And you need to have people like that who take you on with logic. Also people who are thinking about the company 24/7, who are brimming with ideas, whether it's 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning, you get an email saying, hey, can we do this? Or it's 8 a.m. in the morning, next morning, and someone's got a great idea and saying, can't wait to get into office because of this killer idea, let's discuss this. You want that kind of passion. If you get into a monotonous routine where people come in, they do their work, they go away at 6 o'clock, 6:30, what's the point? You've lost the zest. So you want people who can take you on, who are almost what I call no boss, or I don't agree with you boss. Because the irony of the matter is, and not many of you have worked, but you realize that your best friend at work is the person who actually irritates you the most. Because that's the person who helps you and challenges you, helps you make a better decision by challenging you. And your enemy at work is your yes boss who agrees with everything you say. It's as simple as that. Okay, as your team, and this might be a little far away from you, for you right now, but it's very important because as your team evolves, as your organization evolves, you'll realize one thing, which is that the people who are fantastic as startup are not necessarily the best people to grow a company or to scale up a company. So all companies go through these 5 or 6 life cycles. You can call them 3. It can be startup phase, it can be growth phase, it can be scale up phase, it can be M&A. So there are various phases. So the great startup guys are all-rounders. They'll do everything. They're not going to ask, this is my job or your job. They'll take anything which is thrown at them. They'll work through the night. They'll burn the midnight oil. They're happy to do that. But when you scale up, you want specialists. I need someone who do data analytics now. I don't need a general marketing person only. I need someone who's fantastic in SEO and SEM, search engine optimization, search engine monetization, not only general marketing. I might need a brand person specifically. So I need very specialist skills. I need CRM. These are the kind of skills you need. Now also, the flip side is a lot of these specialists may not be very good startup people. So just be kind of aware about this. If you do your own thing or you don't, keep it at the back of your mind. If you join a very young company, you're expected to be a generalist. You'll do anything. If you have that headset that I'm okay doing anything right now, but I'll keep growing as the company grows, that's fine. But if you're very clear that I'm excellent in statistical methods of data analysis or something like that, then please join a company which does just analytics. If you're very clear that I want to be a finance pro, please join a company which is a specialist in finance. Then don't look for companies which are young companies. They expect you to be generalists, which will be quite different from what your expectation is. I think all good companies need to encourage risk-taking. I'll give you one example. So, a lot of failures happen. We try out new products and new features on the site all the time. Some work and some don't. We typically measure what happens. So the beauty of the online medium is you can do A/B testing. A/B testing is I can measure control group A, how they reacted to a change versus the rest, control group B, which were not exposed that change. So actually on our site too, at any point of time, we are running various experiments and we are measuring all the time what's happening. Now, if we learn that a particular experiment failed, and we tell that guy, we actually, rap him on his knuckles and say, this failed, this is terrible, and the company lost so much money, what's going to happen? That guy is not going to take a risk next time. He's going to say, I'm not taking a risk in this company, I'm going to play safe, because if I take a risk and I fail, I'm going to get penalized for that. Versus, if that same guy failed, but we said, guess what, whatever, let's say Manoj, you did everything right. You took us through the process, you presented your business case, you shared this feature, but it still didn't work. Let's put our head to it, let's try to figure out why it didn't happen. It's clearly not your fault because we were all part of that decision. Manoj gets very enthused and he says, okay, I got, positive strokes. It's not like I got rewarded, but I got positive strokes for trying. So I'm willing to try a new experiment again. So if you want people who are always ready to try new things, then you need to have this kind of culture. But if you have the opposite culture where you're going to basically ding people for doing something which is not their fault, the financial outcome of it was not their doing, then you basically have bureaucracy. What's happening in the government today is no one's taking any risks. Everyone's saying, I'm not going to sign anything, that's the safest place to be. But you can't afford to do that in a young company. Okay, we're a couple of slides and then we'll still have, hopefully, 20 minutes or so for Q&A. So we are big believers in sharing the wealth, which is part of our culture. At the time we IPO'd, we had 70% of all our people with ESOP. I think companies that give ESOP, it's a good culture. It also shows, just like Infosys, I think Infosys is our role model out here, that they're happy to share the wealth. Unlike some other companies which believe that shareholding is meant for maybe just very, very few, the rest can be, all, we'll pay you well, we'll give you a good variable, we'll give you a good bonus, but at the end of the day, it's, the shareholding of the company belongs to a few. I'm happy to say that a lot of the new entrepreneurs, internet and other new age businesses are thinking more and more like Silicon Valley. They're more and more open about sharing the wealth, saying let's create this fantastic company together, and if it does really well, if we manage to list the company or we manage to sell the company, we'll all make a lot of money. That kind of thing is beginning to happen, and I think a lot of the young companies I'm meeting, the founders are very open to an ESOP pool, and almost all of them have an ESOP pool. And I again think that's the hallmark of a healthy company. I guess Srini already mentioned this, so we're very proud of the fact that we've got Great Places to Work 3 years in a row in the top 5. So we've been ranked number 2, number 3, number 4, and we're very proud of it because most of the companies in the top 10 or top 20 list happen to be multinationals. So we're really one of the very few in the top 10 Indian and very young companies. When we won the first one, we were under 10 years old. We're still about 12 years old, and we're very proud of this fact. And this, it's for a founder, I think this is a very special kind of award, more rewarding than, I guess, the financial kind of successes that you can get. I guess on innovation, this is slightly technical, and I guess a bit of this is covered in risk taking. So if we have time, we're going to come back to this one. I want to keep enough time for Q&A, and that's the only reason I want to rush through this. So in summary, I guess if there were a secret sauce that we have, very happy to share it. But fundamentally, happy employees will make happy customers. Goes back to Southwest. So if someone put a gun to my head and said, which would you choose, customers or employees? I choose employees first, actually. Because you really can't have happy customers if you don't make your own employees happy first. It's a tough choice, but I think this is the right sequel order. Brand is built by experience and not by advertising. We could do a full presentation on this, and this is definitely a great discussion to have. And whenever you have let's say a marketing guru come in, you should talk to them about this. What's the role of advertising and what's the role of really the experience? And I think everyone, hand on heart will say it's really the brand experience. Think about your favorite brands. You like those brands not because they have great advertising or great advertisements. You like those brands because you have a great experience with them. Whether they're clothes or vehicles or watches or whatever else you think of, or food places to go or whatever, it's because of the experience. And the experience has to sell for itself over time. So we could come up with the best ad in the world, but it'll fall totally flat if the experience is poor. In analytics, we trust, like I told you, through our darkest years, 2001 to 2003, the world was coming to an end. It was really doomsday scenario for us. The only thing which kept us going logically on the left side of the brain was the fact that we were getting better week on week. Otherwise, we would have shut down. So even when things are tough, don't forget to keep measuring. Keep measuring the important 3 or 4 or 5 metrics in your business or in your SPU or whatever you do. Those measurements are the health of your business, and which will tell you are you going the right direction or the wrong direction. Very often, it's not about absolute dollars, it's about conversion. If you're in that kind of business, it's about cost of customer acquisition. If that's getting better and better, you're doing something right. Calculated risk taking, I guess spoke about that already. Take the risk, but take people along. Share your business case. Share it with as many people, get their buy-in. If you take people along, it's a very calculated kind of risk that you've taken, because then it doesn't boomerang on only you. And again, it actually links back to collaborative working. And of course, play soccer, not tennis, what I spoke about. And finally, my favorite quote, borrowed from Jeff Bezos of Amazon, which is, work hard, have fun, and create history, but 2 out of 3 is not an option. So that's really important, and that's been our motto. We don't have a better motto at Make My Trip. So I wrote to Jeff Bezos, he didn't answer, so I've taken it as acceptance, which is a good rule to have in life. If people don't reply, just assume they've agreed. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes for Q&A, and if we have more time, we'll take that one slide in more detail. So over to you guys. Yeah.
Hi,
I'm Suji from Human Resource Leadership Program.
So we will get your mic. Yeah.
So in the beginning, you posed us with a question that whenever you want to become an entrepreneur, you ask yourself, what time are you ready? So this is a question and I want you to answer this. So how do we really answer this? When is the time that we are ready? When the passion is paramount, or when you have the capital ready, or when you have your accounts and business knowledge in place? What is really the time when you're ready?
Wow, it's a $6 million question. So it's a great question, Subhi, actually. I think 3 or 4 things are the most important ingredients to launch a new business. And we'll come to the passion part in the end, because the passion is the final switch, the final trigger to take the plunge. Everything else needs to be ready first. What is everything else? So the first thing is, what is your business plan? What is your business model? What are you going to do? Are you in the right market? Okay, so that whole, have you chosen your market right? Have you sized it up right? What is your killer idea? What is your USP? You have to answer all these questions. Fundamentally, what problem are you going to solve with, let's say, your solution? So if your solution is to cut radioactive waste, radiation while using a mobile phone, which is a very real problem, by the way. It's a massive, I'm just saying, for example, what is your USP? Why would people take your shield or whatever cover you come up with versus someone else's? A very important part of this is your team there. Have you got your team right? And I lay a lot of focus. I started out alone, but I was really, I think, lucky to get 2 great early stage employees who wanted to grow in the business and wanted to give as much to the business as I did, and I made them co-founders, and thankfully I did, because I think that, that's the reason we are where we are today. Not only because of me for sure, but because of these 2 other guys who really helped build the business. Do you have those 1 or 2 or 3 other people? Maybe 3 more is too many. I think the right number is 2 or 3 with complementary skills. So if all of these ducks are lined up and you have answers to all of these things, then it comes down to, are you ready from within? That's the fuzzy part. Are you fearless enough to take that plunge? How much fuel do you have? Which is the funding. Maybe you don't get funding up front. Can you go for 18 to 24 months without funding? Because it might take that long. A lot of funding, so this year if you look at early stage funding or VC funding, it's abysmally low. Last year was a record year. I think some 384 million pumped into venture deals. This year till now, maybe 30 million. And it's not getting better, it's actually getting worse. So do you have fuel to last? You'll get post-revenue. People are saying, okay, proof of concept is enough, but show me the revenue. Are you getting revenue out of your business? Then the funding will come. So that's at that point when you get the answers as yes to all of them, and you feel you're ready, you believe you can grow a business and a team, I think that's the time. So everyone will have a different answer. Please bear in mind that, I said work experience is important, but the best businesses in the world, the most earth-shattering businesses in the world have been built by people who actually dropped out. So if you think about it, the best entrepreneurs have been guys who dropped out. They dropped out of school, they dropped out of college. So whether it's Bill Gates, he could have had great education. I guess if you look at a lot of the other folks, they've actually rejected education as saying, we don't think it's, I'm just so impatient, I can't wait to go. Larry and Sergey of Google is a different story. They did their PhD in search and they went ahead and launched search. They did work. So work experience clearly, none of these guys have shown is a waste of time. But do they run the company? No. They actually got Eric Schmidt to come and run the company because the board figured out these guys are too precious to let them do mundane stuff like running a company. Let them keep focusing on the most important thing, which is to make sure that Google keeps doing the best kind of search and has the best kind of algorithm and is already 3 steps ahead of competition, and let someone else come and focus on running the company. So they got an experienced leader like Eric Schmidt to come and run the company. So that formula can also work. So you have to have, all these lights have to be green. All these ducks have to be in a row for you to go ahead. Don't go half-baked. Yeah.
How the work with AMF bowling, it failed, and you also had a slide regarding reading the market. Do you owe the failure of AMF bowling to the market research or to something else, to some other factor?
Yeah, so I'll take your question one by one.
So I think the failure of AMF Bowling was definitely not doing enough due diligence. The market on a macro made sense. You know, we had the demographics, we had a middle class that time, which was probably not 300 million, it's still probably not 300 million. So McKinsey and company have been fooling the world for the longest time. The reality is I think we've got some 150 million people, which is true middle class. At that time it was probably 75 million, because it's 95 to now. Who could afford to pay 100 rupees or whatever. And in fact, at that point of time, I remember having a long discussion. We actually had an MOU with Ajay Bijli to do a multiplex come bowling together in a cinema hall in GK2. And Ajay said people would pay 100 rupees to see a movie. And I said, you must be crazy, because at that point of time, we actually paid 30 rupees to see a movie in Priya Cinema in Vasant Vihar. So things have changed a lot, but then, you know, it's about what you offer and the whole offering. And he clearly had the vision. So I think the at a very macro level, things were right. So it's that big, you know, that danger of the average depth of the river is 4 feet. So I can cross it even though I don't know how to swim, is a big, big trap, right? Because obviously it's not 4 feet all through. All you need is one place for it to be 10 feet and you're done. So, you know, I think I did the macros right, classical MBA kind of modeling, but I don't think I understood one very important factor, that why will investors not put in 20 lanes? Because that kind of footprint and large-scale development did exist. So I think that was definitely done wrong. So that was the big reason it failed, actually.
I also have one more question regarding MakeMyTrip. Can you let us know the kind of transactions you get from Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities vis-a-vis the transactions from the more...
No, it's a great question. I can give you an indication because that's what we share with our public investors. So Tier 2 for us and Tier 3 are growing faster than Tier 1. Currently, if I was to lump Tier 1 on one side and actually look at metros and mini metros, it's still top 10 cities give us more than 50% of our business, but it's changing a lot, that mix. So it's actually moving quite fast towards Tier 2 and Tier 3. And if you think about it, there's a bigger need in Tier 2 and Tier 3 for businesses like us because the alternatives are so few. What do you do? How many of you come from a Tier 3 city? Where do you come from?
Let's go back.
Warangal. Yeah, that's Tier 3. Anyone else? You're Tier 3. Who else is Tier 3? It's okay, it's a matter of pride. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gaya? Okay, so Gaya and Warangal are good examples of Tier 3. And in both of them, if you think about it, what are the choices if you want to book, let's say, a hotel online or a holiday online or a ticket online? You would typically before this go to a travel agent. Now that travel agent could have been usurious, could have taken a very unfair or a large margin and a markup and take it, and you had no choice. You knew the guy was a pro. So something like us should be an instant success. Gaya won't be very different. Gaya is a very big inbound market for getting people to come in because of Buddhist tourism, but for an outbound market, you're stuck. Similarly, today I think selling clothes online would do well there. I think Flipkart would do very well, and I was talking to the Flipkart guys and the Myntra guys, and they're doing great business selling into smaller cities, because how else will folks get those? We at least have an option. We can get into a mall and we can go to a nice bookstore and buy our music, buy our books, buy our various things. Those options don't exist in most of these cities. Very small stores exist. The choice is very limited. So now suddenly with the internet, your selection is completely unlimited. So Tier 3 is definitely growing very fast.
I mainly asked this question because we had a very interesting debate in our study group in Atlanta. We were talking about application of e-learning in rural space. A part of our group believed that it's the right model because it takes away the competency of a teacher. But again, the other part of the group believed it cannot be the right model because they might not be perfect enough to use the technology. So that's why.
Yeah, I think the technology is the easier part. I think the sensitivities to who's the receiver and who's the student and how to teach, the packaging and the content become very important. And if you think about it, I don't know if any of you have seen the Khan Academy. So everyone's aware of Salman Khan, the guy who teaches, not the guy who fights. So if you look at the Khan Academy and the way they've made it so easy to understand and to imbibe, so education is changing dramatically. And government's big push to connect every panchayat is actually a very noble one, hopefully it'll get done, is largely for inclusive education. inclusive financial services, which is very important, and telemedicine. And these three things, if you think about it, can really solve a lot of problems, because this whole rural-urban shift which is happening because you don't get these services there. If you start getting the services there, the quality of life is probably better in a lot of the villages. And a lot of people will not necessarily flock to the cities to take up menial jobs. They'll do a far more meaningful job out there, even if it's tilling the land. But their children are getting all of this, which is very important. Yeah.
So my question is on the e-commerce business as such. So how will a company like MakeMyTrip differentiate itself from a Yatra, or a business like Flipkart differentiate itself from Myntra? Because all of them are essentially selling the same products and services.
Yeah.
So how do you create that difference?
What's our USP?
Yeah.
No, it's a very good question, especially when it comes to intermediaries like all the companies that you mentioned. So if you think of us, or you think of Yatra, or you think of ClearTrip, or you think of Jabong, or Flipkart, or Myntra, all of them are selling someone else's products. We are intermediaries. The only product where we have control over the whole product is actually the package. So we also do packages, and that's why we like bundled products. So when we sell a tour to Ladakh, we have a lot more control over the whole product, because we're doing a 7-day, 6-day itinerary to Ladakh, or to the Andamans, or to Maldives. And we have all of these because these are the only places we can value add in terms of the core product. The rest of it is all around the buying experience. So the buying process is the only place we can make a difference, which is the easier we make it for people to buy, to research what they're looking out for, to get all the relevant answers, get the relevant results at the right price points. Price is very important. When people say, what are the 3 most important things in buying travel online? Someone said it half in jest, it's price. Sometimes, they're saying people will go to any lengths to get the best price, because at the end of the day, he's still going to fly an Indigo. But it's half true. Because why it's half true? Within that 50 rupee margin, sometimes people are looking for a more convenient way to buy. People are looking for help along the way. People are looking for a very convenient way to make a change, to cancel and to get refunds. And we're trying to focus on the 360. So the whole buying experience, the buyer behavior, we actually have a new website on beta right now, a new front end, which will be, actually should be released in the next few weeks hopefully, which dramatically changes how you book. Because we've realized a lot of things through experiments, and now we put it to the fore. It takes a long time to ship software developments, but we managed, I think we're almost there. And also we're trying to make the whole process of refunds fully automated. In fact, going out of the way and saying, we'll go out of pocket, we'll pay the customer the refund, and then we'll keep sorting it out with the airline or the hotel. We're launching something in the next week or so, which is going to enable you to book a hotel instantaneously for the next 2 hours or 4 hours. We found a huge number of people make a last-minute program, not to travel, but they have to stay back where they are because of business needs. They couldn't come back the same night, business is longer, or sometimes last minute I've got to go, and you'll be able to do this on your mobile phone. So what we've launched on the phone in terms of our iPhone app and our BlackBerry app and our Android app is making things much easier for people to book, because they're saying, I'm in a car or I'm in the metro for 1 hour, I've got all the time in the world, but I want to make my bookings. I don't want to waste my precious free time to go and make a booking, so I'll just do it on the phone. And once you're in an app, you're actually in a walled garden, and you have a much higher chance of success. So it's the user experience, which is why Amazon is the one up there, and you don't even know the name of the second retailer in the US. There was a time where Amazon was not there, and it was competing with hundreds of guys. Yahoo was selling, various other guys were doing e-commerce. Now Amazon is there, and there's nobody else. They've killed everyone else because of customer experience. But they sell only one product of their own, which is the Kindle, over the last few years. Everything else is someone else's product. That same book you can buy anywhere, that same TV you can buy anywhere, that same Walkman you can buy anywhere, or MP3 player. But people gravitate towards this because the user experience is better. So for us, the only area to play is user experience, and maybe price, but price is the last thing you want to start playing in, because it starts hitting your bottom line. Yeah, great question. Yes, please.
It is already seen that as companies move, they become bulkier and bigger. They sometimes then forget their vision.
and they don't rejuvenate themselves. And what would you do to would advise on the rejuvenation part of the companies as they get bigger and bulkier in terms of cash flow?
Yeah, they're actually two different things. So one is just becoming bigger and bulkier, and ironically in the small session we had before this, I was actually talking about our company becoming a little bigger and bulkier, and we are doing some weight loss program and some trimming. So we're looking at costs that we've accumulated which we shouldn't have. So we're looking at those kind of costs. They could be outsourced costs, they could be other vendor costs. Generally it's a tendency when you start growing, maybe you can push people harder and say, okay, let's do bottom slicing on advertising. We have a huge advertising budget, and actually most of it is public, but it's staggering, and that's the reason where I can share with you. Just last night we made an announcement, and I have a press conference on Monday. So we're taking a punt on cricket for the first time. So we're actually going to be on IPL in a big way. So we've actually become principal sponsors for one of the teams, and it's a calculated risk. It could boomerang, and I've been one of the big pushers for it. But I said, let's look at it as a fraction of our total marketing budget. It's in single digits. Let's do that saving somewhere else. But the connection that you will make with a certain set of people, so this is the Hyderabad team, which is now called Sunrisers, Deccan Chargers chain. The connection that you will make with that local market, which is a very important market for us, will be of a different level. Also, what we can do with that advertising is the point. It's not just go and slap on a sticker. What we'll do in terms. So I think you can bottom slice and you can take out some degree of that fat, and you should actually do it periodically. So not even annually. I believe it should be done quarterly. And it should be done all the time, where you should push yourself and say, do I need this cost, or is it investment? And all lean companies, actually the best companies in the world will be very lean companies. So that's the only way. The second question is vision. So very interestingly, we don't have a vision statement or a mission statement till now. And I don't know right or wrong. So we have something fuzzy, and it's always been in my mind. And even today for me, someone asked me, and the best one I can think of is when every customer is a brand ambassador. That for me would be huge. Now it doesn't tell me what I do. I could be any company. So I think the company which has got closest to it is probably Apple, and that's why I'm a huge Apple fan. Because if you think about it, not every customer, but most customers become ambassadors. They start talking about it, hey, this is so cool and this is so nice, have you checked out iTunes? And we're talking about, we're selling for them without realizing. That happens when you've reached a very, very high level. So you have to have a phenomenal experience each time. My son is a brand ambassador without getting paid. I keep telling him for Nike. I tell him you should go to Nike and tell them he thinks Nike is a religion. And for him, and he's all of 11 years old, but he worships Nike. So, if you become a brand ambassador, that if you can make every customer into a brand ambassador, it's a big deal. And that would be very inspiring for me. So I think vision is important to have, but in today's world, I think you have to be flexible enough to course correct that vision as you go along. I think that's important. Maybe we'll take one more question, then I've got to get back actually to work. You ask, not ask. Go for it.
When you get into the competition, probably firstly you're focusing on the Tier 1 space. But going to the Tier 2 or Tier 3 cities, how did you make this approach? I mean, the penetration of internet is very less, and probably even if it is there, the trust factor definitely comes to the hindrance.
Yeah.
So how did you tackle that?
So it's a great question. For those of you who couldn't hear it, what was our approach to Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities as we got into them? Because the trust factor is even more important out there because penetration is low. So 5 years ago, we actually set up a travel store as an experiment. We did 3 travel stores. So I have a lot of Yanks on my board, Americans on my board, and they were absolutely aghast. They said, you're going the opposite way. How can you be, this is retrograde, how can you set up a travel store? And what I was trying to explain to them, I remember taking them to a market. We used to be in Anchini. So I took them to Malvinagar market and I showed them how business is done in India. And it was evening time, thriving evening, busy market out there. And I said, listen, this is Indian business. Here's one travel agent, Deepal's out there. And I said, this is how business is done and this is how it happens. What I want to do is not, I don't want to set up a chain. We do have 20 travel stores. I want to break the trust barrier in these smaller cities, and actually we are in the bigger cities with our 20 stores, but we have franchises in smaller stores, where I want to get the trust factor out of the way. How did I know that's a problem? Because people were buying air tickets from us from every city and town in the country. Warangal was buying air tickets, Gaya was buying air tickets. The problem was getting them to buy holidays and hotels. When it came to hotels and holidays, they had a hesitation. So there the trust factor was more that was required. So the moment you put up a travel store in a smaller city, in Ahmedabad, anyone from Ahmedabad here? So, okay, anyone from Calcutta out here? Okay, thankfully 1%. Okay, so we put up a store on Netaji Subhash Road, fairly well-known area, and then we put up another store in Salt Lake City. The whole city knew, Make My Trip is here. We started seeing two very interesting things. We sold more of holidays in that market, but we also sold more of online air tickets in that market. The bleed over impact of the brand was tremendous because people felt now that this company is here to stay. This company is real. If there's a problem, we can go in. The first time they walked in, the second time they probably called us. And eventually we migrated them to the internet. So that we use as a brand building and as a trust building measure for this thing. And it's worked pretty well for us actually. Any other pressing question, killer question?
One last question.
Anyone?
Hello sir, I'm Dinesh from AFP. I actually have two questions. I'll see if I have time for both questions. One of them is, sir, how much of the traffic you expect from organic searches on your portal, and like vis-a-vis the inorganic mediums?
So roughly we're getting more than 50%, almost 55% coming organic, which is testimony to the brand. Yeah, because people are remembering the brand name and coming back, which is a pretty large number, actually, pretty high number.
So the second question was that in November 2012, you made an acquisition of a Thailand-based group.
hotel.
So what kind of synergies are you expecting from that?
Yeah, so thanks. I'm glad that you've read up on the company. So hoteltravel.com is actually our fifth acquisition or investment, but our most significant one. It can range anywhere from 10 million at base price to 25 million, depending on how well the company does. So it's like the Agoda.com or like the hotels.com or the booking.com of Southeast Asia. They have a coverage of about 70,000 hotels, and we see a lot of people traveling from India to Southeast Asia and vice versa. We think that's going to be a really hot bed. Also, there are very few other good companies in that market. So we see tremendous opportunity to cross-pollinate. The way we do funnel management is when people come to our homepage, then they go to the next level, let's say the hotel review page, listing page, review page, payment page, and thank you page. It's a 5-step funnel. We believe we can add a lot of value to the way they're doing that. They don't necessarily do that in the same kind of fanatically analytical way that we do that. However, they do content in a brilliant way. They have fantastic content for all of these hotels. They do user-generated content in a huge way, so in a better way. So we think we can cross-pollinate and learn from that. So tremendous synergies. Now time will tell. So it's an interesting test, but we'll get to know. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. It's been great.